TESmart has sent over a KVM2S that they claim is the world's first dual monitor Thunderbolt for KVM. That sounds pretty freaking cool. Let's check this thing out and see what all it has to offer.
This particular model is the HDC202-X24 USB-K. Starting from the left, it sports a 3.5mm audio and microphone jack, two USB 3.2 Generation 2 ports of Type A and of Type C that provide 7 watts of power or 5 volts and 1.5 amps. On the far right, we have two buttons, one to switch between the two sources and one to power off the unit after holding it down for 2 seconds. There is a fan on this unit, but I was unable to test how loud it is because it was more quiet than the ambient volume of my home. On the rear of our device are all of the input and output ports. It's important to note here that the max resolution is 4K at 60Hz with 444 chroma subsampling and 8-bit color. It does also support everything from 1080p up to 240Hz, through 2560 by 1440 at 120 Hz. And yes, ultrawides are also supported at 3440 by 1440 at 100 Hz.
Now, to use this thing as advertised, I quite literally have to destroy my entire home setup to make this happen, so that's what we're gonna work on right now. This KVM is advertised to be used with a laptop and a gaming desktop. Now, I'm a little wary about the whole gaming portion of this because this is HDMI 2.0 out the rear and it only supports up to 4K at 60 Hz. They do have other products that go higher than 60 Hz, like I think all the way up to 144 Hz. So it is a little strange that we're capped at 60 Hz on this product. But nonetheless, it's still probably a very good dock for anyone that has a laptop and is just looking to do 1080p gaming or 2560 by 1440p gaming instead. But if you're looking at 4K, may not be for you. I have a total of 6 peripherals I need to use. A gamepad, a keyboard, a mouse, webcam, headset, and microphone. This device only has 4 USB output on the rear, but that's okay, because the game plan is to actually use the built-in hub in my monitor that has 2 USB out. So we can plug 2 devices in here and then plug the monitor into this, and that should allow us to use all 6 of our peripherals through the rear of the device, so we don't have to have any unsightly cables plugged into the front, or anything temporary can just be plugged in the front and removed when we're done with it, giving us a much better or more clean setup overall. So I think what I'll do is put the KVM somewhere about here on the desk so I can actually reach the physical switch that's on the front. This looks like a pretty good spot for it, I think. And then what we'll do is we'll just start plugging in everything. So like I mentioned before, I do want to have my microphone and headset plugged into the back of the monitor. So we'll plug those in first, and then we need to go from the monitor to our KVM. So let's find a USB cable. So to go from here, we need to use this cable, and that plugs into the monitor itself. And then we will just plug this into the bottom, plug this into the bottom 5 gigabit port on the rear. And then we'll go ahead and plug in our mouse and then our keyboard as well. Now, I don't believe it matters where you plug these in. They are capable of pass-through, but yeah, we're just gonna plug those in there. So we'll be using the included cables to go from the gaming PC to the monitor. So they included a DisplayPort cable. And so we'll use DisplayPort for our first output or our first input into the KVM. And I'm just gonna plug that into input A, which is the top of the KVM. And they also include this HDMI cable that also has USB on both ends. So this is pretty neat. And we'll run this to the second monitor, and then the USB will go from here to the KVM. That's pretty interesting. This cable actually says high-speed HDMI cable with Ethernet on it. So this is probably a pretty decent Ethernet cable. They did stress in the email to only use their stuff where I could. Obviously, because of my unique situation, we don't have enough cables, or they didn't provide enough cables for me to use 100% of their stuff, but we are gonna use their cables where we can. All right, so this end is going to go into my HDMI port, and then we're just gonna plug this into one of our 10 gig USB ports on the rear of my gaming PC, and then we'll plug this in to the KVM, and then this will go into the HDMI port or output, or input B, sorry. Yeah, input A and input B. All right, now we're gonna go from the KVM to both monitors, and we're gonna be using these HDMI cables that do up to 8K 60 Hertz. So these are pretty nice HDMI cables and should be perfect, more than perfect for this setup. So the first HDMI cable we actually plug into output A, and that will go directly into our monitor. All right, so this one's the shortest one, so it makes sense to go there. And then for output B, we'll plug in our other longer, which is all the way over here. All right, so that's in. I almost forgot, so my webcam is on this little arm right here, so we actually do need to plug this in. And now we'll have all peripherals plugged in. This thing is fully loaded and ready to go. TESmart has included a Thunderbolt 4 cable for us. So the last thing to do is connect our Mac Mini into the KVM, and the KVM will supply up to 60 watts of power through this port here. And this is acting as an upload port, charging port, and pretty much everything else as far as inputs go. And also this port here is a downstream port, as I mentioned earlier. So this will do 40 gigabit per second. So this is great for like an external NVMe drive or something that requires really super fast data transfers. All right, we do obviously have to arrange these displays. So it looks like the Odyssey pulled up perfectly fine. And we are limited to 60 Hertz, and it doesn't look like we can actually get HDR. This is an HDR capable monitor, but it doesn't seem to actually work. I guess that's okay. You know, again, this is a full depth color KVM, so it's like 444 or 8-bit, whatever it is. All right, let's go over to here and change this to portrait mode. Confirm. That looks right. It looks like we got some weird color issue going on here. I'm not sure why that is, but let's actually arrange these in the proper order. Oh, there we go. That seemed to fix it. I'll just attribute that to something Mac does. And now look, oh, whoa. They said that this will do 3440 by 1440 up to 100 Hertz in the documentation, but it actually looks like it's limited to 50 Hertz at this resolution. I wonder, that might be a Mac thing, but whatever the case, it appears to be working on Mac. All right, so the next thing I want to look at is to make sure that all my USB devices actually show up. So if we go over to sound and settings, we should see a few things. We should see the MacBook microphone, of course. We see the Insta360 USB audio, which comes through the 3.5 millimeter audio jack on the front. And then for output, we're seeing the speakers, the USB audio, also through the 3.5 millimeter jack, both monitors. It looks like we're actually missing the headset as well as the microphone, the Elgato microphone. That's weird. Everything is plugged in, so we'll troubleshoot that later. We'll just see how it works on Windows first. With Windows, everything is all sorted out, so let's go check out our display settings. And interestingly enough, in Windows, if we click on the right display here, it looks like HDR is not available either. Let's click on this. Yeah, it doesn't look like we can enable HDR, which kind of sucks. Oh wait, there it is. I guess I'm blind. So HDR does work on Windows. Okay, so let's see if at least Gsync works. All right, adjust image setting. I forget where Gsync is. Okay, so I'm also not seeing Gsync in here anywhere. I thought there was a drop-down menu for Gsync to enable it, or at least like a little checkbox somewhere, but I don't see it. So I don't think this actually supports Gsync, which is kind of a shame, I guess, especially since gaming is advertised for this product. That's a bit of a bummer there, but let's, I guess let's close out of this. At least HDR works. And let's also check out our USB options. So we were previously missing some of our USB. So let's go to playback. So we do have our headphones, so they're showing up now. Our USB DAC, monitor, second monitor, and USB audio. Okay, so all of our speakers are showing up. Let's go to recording devices. We have our Insta360 microphone. We have our Elgato microphone. and our USB 3.5 millimeter jack audio showing up as well. So it looks like on Windows, everything's actually appearing or showing up USB wise. Well, that's interesting. I'm not actually sure what to do about that one. Okay, well, let's, for now, let's just move on. I'll try and troubleshoot this a little bit later. Let's show off the EDID stuff. The screens are probably gonna be a little blurry for you guys. That's okay. Because again, the whole idea of this is to show off switching in EDID. So we can switch by pressing the switch button on the front, and that should bring us back. Our windows are in the same exact place, which is good. That's what you want to see. And we also can do something cool by hitting the right control twice, and then we can hit the number 2 key on our numpad, and that will switch us to our second source, which in this case would be the gaming PC. And our first source is the Mac, and we can do that again by hitting control twice and then 1. That'll switch us back to the Mac. And the USB seems to work instantly. Camera's picked up there. Everything's working. And I believe we can also do something cool by cycling our displays. So we can stay on source 1 and then change our source here. So this is going to be the second screen, which I think is gonna, yeah, that's gonna mess up. So that's the wrong monitor. Let's change that to, there we go. That's what we want to see. So this is the second screen of our ultra wide. So you can see that this is actually still set up. Now it did move over my browser window, which I think is okay. That's probably ideal. And then we can cycle through this once more by hitting control twice. Oh, I screwed that up. Hitting control twice and then arrowing again. And that will bring back our Mac display. Perfect. Also, I don't know if anyone noticed this or not, because I just now did. I wasn't even thinking about it. We have one cable plugged into the Mac right now. Just that PCI, or that Thunderbolt cable into the Thunderbolt port. And we have dual screens. I just realized that a lot of docks and KVMs don't actually do that. You have to use special software in most cases to get 2 displays, but it's just working here, and I didn't even realize that till now. Okay, cool. So there are a bunch of other cool keyboard shortcuts that you can learn to use with this thing. I think that those are the best. So hitting control twice, the arrow keys, as well as 1 and 2 on the numpad. There's probably a bunch of other stuff you can do, but those are the ones I like. And of course, just hitting this is also very easy and functional. Now they do also include this remote for your A source and B source. There's a C on here, and then to switch, and of course 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not going to use this mostly because, well, I don't have batteries laying around. That's okay. But this does have an infrared receiver, so you could use this to change through your sources and stuff. But honestly, just using the keyboard is pretty convenient because it's going to be in front of you anyway. So something like this is a great addition, even though in my opinion and in my setup it is useless. But that doesn't mean it's useless for you. Oops, that's broken now. Since we're having problems with Mac, I'm going to try and use this Windows PC. This has Windows 11 installed on it, and it's actually got USB-C ports on the side. I believe these are generation 3.1, maybe 3.2, but I'm pretty sure it's 3.1. So it may not work compatibility-wise, but we're going to try it anyway and see what happens. Now, I do also have to bring external power because this laptop is quite the beast and uses significantly more juice than the MacBook does. It's got like an NVIDIA graphics card and all sorts of other goodies on there. Let's get this all plugged in to see what happens. This is booted up, so the first thing I want to check is immediately right away the USB stuff, and I don't know how to do that on Windows 11, so give me a moment here. Wow, this is overwhelming. I'm pretty sure this is working because immediately the headphones are picked up as output devices, and also the headphones for the Elgato microphone. So to me, that means it is working. So I wonder, this must be some sort of Mac issue just based off what I'm looking at here. I don't think this is a KVM issue because it clearly is working with everything plugged into the rear with the monitor and into the Windows PC or the Windows laptop. While we're here, let's actually check one more thing. I'm curious about to see if HDR works. Oh, that's weird. So it looks like HDR also works on the Windows PC through that same Thunderbolt connector, but it doesn't work on Mac. Okay. Okay. We got multiple problems here. Let's try and fix the USB issue real quick. I have a USB hub that's laying around here. I'm gonna try and use this in place of the monitor, so let's get that disconnected. All right, in theory, those devices still work. How the heck did I get back there? Oh, sound. Yep, and they showed back up even with the USB hub. Okay, so maybe let's switch to the, oh wait, yeah, sorry. Ooh, let's switch to the gaming PC. I almost said the Mac, but we've taken the Mac out of this. And let's go to sound settings. Okay, yep, everything's here. I would screen capture this and show you, but I don't think it's necessary. I mean, it worked before, so why would it change now? Interesting. With the Windows 11 laptop out of the way, let's try the Mac again via Thunderbolt 4. If I can get it plugged in, okay. Now, this might wake up on its own. Let's see if we can just shake it. Okay, so if we go back to sound, looks like we're actually already missing the headphones. I can just tell even the other USB hub is still not working because we're missing 2 audio outs. We should be getting the Elgato headset, or I'm sorry, the Elgato out as well as my headset out. So, that doesn't seem to be working either. All right, just for fun, let's plug into the front USB with our hub and see if that works. I mean, it should work in theory, right? I mean, it's just a hub. It's less than ideal. Let's see what happens. Yeah, see, they popped up immediately. Okay, that's really weird. So it seems to be some sort of Mac issue. And also, since we know HDR works with the Windows laptop, let's go back and just make sure I didn't miss anything. You know, HDR would be here if it was available. High dynamic range. Yep, it would be here. It would show up if we could. So that's really weird. Something seems to be going on with our Mac. It should be doing HDR. Just to make sure it's not completely that Mac Mini's fault, I'm going to plug the Thunderbolt connection into my Mac Mini. So this is an M4 Mac Mini, brand spanking new. Should totally be able to do this. Let's see what happens. All right, wake up Mac. Wake up Mac Mini. All right, Mac Mini is awake and plugged in. I didn't change anything. I just got it all plugged in. USB shows up. All right, now let's check out that HDR. Yep. I know for a fact that the Mac Mini can do HDR. And it's not showing up here. So, seems to be some issues going on here with Mac OS and the KVM. It looks like everything on the Windows world works correctly. That is quite interesting. I don't know what to make of that. This particular KVM is probably good enough for gaming at 2560 by 1440p, and the only reason why I say probably is because we discovered that it doesn't actually support G-Sync or FreeSync. And just to recap or summarize everything up until this point, on Mac OS, when connected via Thunderbolt, we do lose HDR for some reason. However, on our Windows laptop, through USB-C, HDR seems to work perfectly fine. We also have the oddball issue with USB, or I have to plug in my monitor or this USB hub into the front in order to get all of the USB accessories I have to show up on Mac, which is not an issue on my Windows laptop. It just works. There's also potentially the issue with 3440 by 1440. My monitor is 60 Hz capable. However, it's only showing up as 50 Hz, so I'm a little skeptical that 3440 by 1440 will run at 100 Hz, but that's not something I can test, unfortunately, because I don't have an ultra-wide monitor that goes higher than 60 Hz. For version 2 of this KVM, I'd like to see that the USB Type-B port be switched out for USB-C or Thunderbolt, because a lot of modern gaming desktops also offer USB-C or Thunderbolt these days. Also, please bring us the high refresh rates that you are already offering on your other products. so that way we can game at 4K 144 Hertz, and also please bring over dynamic HDR and G-Sync support like you have on your existing products as well. Lastly, great job putting most of the USB ports on the rear of the KVM. That is huge. A lot of KVM manufacturers don't do that, and I've seen that on your high refresh rate versions or your more gaming centric KVM options, you've put all the USB on the front. Please do not do that. If you revise this particular model, will come out with another model like it with higher refresh rates. Continue putting those USB ports on the rear. The options that you have here are pretty good. Maybe, if possible, add 2 more USB ports on the rear somehow, if that's even possible. And in all fairness to TESmart, and just to show you guys, a lot of docks, they only give you 2 USB options on the rear of the devices, which is not enough. I don't know why they decide to give you like 16 displays out of different types and only 2 USB ports. Like, this is ridiculous. They expect you to also plug in a hub, which is not acceptable. And then on the front, they typically also give you plenty of USB options. But again, I don't want to be plugging in my keyboard and mouse and whatever else into the front. I just want to use all of the ports on the back. It's a desktop. It's a desk. None of this stuff is supposed to move. Whoa, 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 Stefano. You mean to tell me that with your silly personality and your grand and intoxicating innocence, this is how you're going to use the KVM when you have a monitor that's capable of going at a refresh rate of 240 Hertz? Why would you use the 60 Hertz KVM? Well, so I had to show you the way everything worked as advertised. Now let's show you how I intend on using this KVM, because really I only need USB keyboard mouse switching. I don't really need all of the fancy display nonsense. So to use this the way that I intend on using it, we're going to take out this hub because it's not necessary, and we're basically going to plug everything back into the monitor, or the microphone headset anyway. And I guess for now, we'll just route this to the front. It's a little ugly, but fine, whatever. And then we're basically just going to rip all of these cables out because I don't think we're going to use any of them. All the display cables, it is. We are going to use some cables, but we're going to use my own cables. Oh, we don't need this anymore. What is stuck in here? For my setup, in order to hit 240 Hertz, I am married to DisplayPort 1.4. There's just no way around it. So we're actually going to plug this back into the graphics card. That'll be good there. And then for all of our USB to come through, we'll just use the USB cable here to go between the two. And we'll once again be plugging that into our 10 gig capable port there. We could actually do USB-C to USB-C if that was an option. So because I do want HDR from my Mac Mini, I'm actually going to plug this in to the monitor so we can now get 120 Hertz and HDR. So that goes all the way underneath to the Mac Mini that's at the front. Mac Mini is already plugged into this port here, so that's good to go. We don't need to do anything else. Last but not least, I'd also like to get my second monitor to work. So we're gonna go HDMI to the graphics card. We'll plug that in there, and we're just gonna use their HDMI cable to go back to, we don't need to plug this in. I'm plugging this in just because it'll cable manage nicely. So we got HDMI back to the switch, and we're gonna plug that into port B. All right, I think that's everything. Yeah, I think that's everything we wanted to do. Oh, wait, something's unplugged. What's unplugged? What are you? Oh no, that's right, that's right. I had to move this cable to the rear. I almost forgot. All right, now everything's plugged in. Okay. All right, with everything plugged in the way I would like it, so we can already see that we are at 120 Hertz on our monitor, and we can enable that sweet HDR. All right, high refresh and 120 Hertz, and we get the benefit of having all of our USB devices. So let's go to sound, output. We can see our headsets here like it's supposed to be. We have our inputs here like we're supposed to have. That's looking good so far. Now, the one downside is I will have to manually switch displays here, so I will have to still do that, but that's not a big deal. I've been doing that for a long time. All that basically means now is I no longer have to use another set of keyboard and mouse. So I'm still personally happy just because I have a KVM switch that works now. And let's go into NVIDIA control panel. You guys won't be able to see this. Yeah, already 240 Hertz, that's good. So this monitor is still at 50 hertz, whatever, not a big deal. G-Sync is back, so we can enable G-Sync now. Oh man, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want to see. Oh, I bet HDR. Well, HDR has always worked, so that should still be enabled. Yep, HDR is still enabled. Heck yeah. So, not perfect, but I guess in this configuration, still acceptable for my needs, because again, I just need to cycle through all of these as a content creator that have a lot of USB devices. Good first attempt, TESmart. I think a lot of work from home people and a lot of low-end gamers, so basically anyone 2560 by 1440 or lower, will be very happy with this. Unfortunately for me, it just doesn't really work out. But again, I'm not the target audience, so I understand why I'm outside of the use case. I'd really like to know what you guys think about this device. Definitely drop some comments below, letting me know your thoughts and opinions and how this would fit into your workflow, if at all, or if you would also like to see something like mine. Now, this is pretty expensive at $699, so I don't know if they brought us some of the other features like the high refresh and stuff like that, how much more expensive it would get, but it would be worth it, especially with all the USB on the rear side. That's like the ideal KVM/dock in my opinion. I don't know why everyone doesn't include more USB on the rear. Like, what are y'all doing? Anyway, sorry. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.